Hello guys, in this video tutorial I will teach you in more detail about SQL constraints. SQL constraints are used to specify rules for the data in the table. Constraints are used to limit the type of data that go into the table. So we cannot violate the SQL constraints while inserting the data into the table. In our last video, one constraint foreign key is already covered. Primary key and foreign key are already covered in our last video. So in this video I will introduce you about other constraints that are mostly used in database. So let's start. First we create a table. Create table temp. So there are two ways of taking constraints on the table columns. One way is during the creation of the table, and other way is using alter command. So let's take example. Suppose we take first attribute temp id, second attribute we take, for example, tname varchar. So here we specify the constraint name. For example, the constraint type which we take here is not null, so that the entering data into table cannot be null for the attribute tname. We suppose write tcontact and specify the data type with size and make it unique, so you will write a unique constraint for it. Similarly, we write t address with the data type varchar and make it default abc. So if we don't enter value for the address, so the default value abc will be entered. And we take th and we take the check, we take the constraint check. So th should be, we can write between th must be between 20 and 30. Suppose we can also use other operator like age greater than 20, greater than 30, between 20 and 30, greater than 0, and so on. This table name is already this name table already exists, so we take temp1. Table is created. Now we describe temp1. This query is run in order to check which type of constraint we have considered for this table temp1. So you will write select constraint names, constraint type from user constraints, where table name is equal to temp1. So we can see here three constraints. The name are sys C00539. So different system names are generated. Now if we take our names instead of system names, so we can also assign our names to different constraint during creation of table. So how can we do that? So first we drop table temp1 and make and create again. Suppose we create it again with the same name temp1, temp id number, and make primary key on it. So the primary key can be only one in the whole table, so we write primary key. We write temp tname varchar2, and here instead of writing not null directly, we write constraint, and constraint name we put constraint name, suppose C1, we can write any name here and write constraint type normal. We take other attribute, for example the same attribute T contact, data type is varchar, and constraint C2 for example, and constraint type we consider here is a unique, and suppose we took these two. So in similarly way we can also take other constraint with specified name and types. So we have created, we have brought slight changes. Instead of C1 we wrote, I wrote C11 because C1 constraint already existed in the user, and similarly C2 also existed, so I took C22. So in this way table is created. Now I write the same query, temp, temp1. So now these two constraints C11, C22 are the constraint we have taken for the two columns, T name and T contact, and this is primary key by default. So primary key is 1, so we don't need to remember its name, but we have to remember these two names C11, C22. Now we can add other constraint if we forgot some columns, or we have forgot some constraints. So using alter command we can add. Suppose we want to alter this table temp1, add T address varchar 2, and the constraint we take here is constraint C33 check. We take suppose th number, constraint C33 check th between 20 and 30. Table is altered, so we can see describe temp1. Now th is entered. So if we write it again, see if we write this query again, so we can see C33 is now added. So now we can drop the constraint like we drop the column. So how to drop the constraint? We will write alter table name drop constraint, for example C33. The constraint is table is altered and constraint is no more here. We can also make it disable instead of drop. Disable means we might not need this constraint no more, or we can laterally need it, so we can enable or disable the constraint. For example, we disable the constraint C22. So we will write table alter table temp1 disable constraint C22. Now the table is altered and C22 is now disabled. Like we can also make it enable constraint C22. Now the constraint is now enabled. So this was all about the constraints, how we can put constraints on the table columns during the creation without specifying constraint name, with specification of name, and using alter command we can add the constraint, and similarly we can enable or disable constraint. So thank you for watching my video, and wait for the other videos. Thank you so much.